Taoiseach, in your political messages and speeches to the people and to this Dáil, the truth simply does not matter. You will say anything, Taoiseach, to get elected. You will say anything to cover up something. You will deny reality and the truth when it stares you in the face.
We don't normally
language means nothing
for telling untruths in the chamber. Please respect.
Language means nothing to you, Taoiseach. You break promise after promise, believing that media management will take care of everything. And nowhere is this behaviour more manifest, Taoiseach, than in the government's abandonment of universal health insurance, the cornerstone of your health philosophy over the last 10 years and more. You promised it in 2007. You promised it in 2011. You said it would eliminate people waiting on trolleys, reduce waiting times and provide equal access to all. Instead, we have record numbers on trolleys, record waiting times and morale at an all-time low in our health service. You have been in denial, Taoiseach, for the last 5 years on this issue. In here you have kept on saying that you would deliver universal health insurance, and that you even said in a time of economic crisis was the best time to deliver it. You were told repeatedly that this was unworkable by officials in the Department of Public Expenditure, by officials in the Department of Finance, by an independent study that was commissioned by Fianna Fáil when Billy Keller offered it to you, when they said and raised the very same concerns that KPMG and the SRI have now raised and have caused the abandonment of this policy. And the IMO said it will go down in history as one of the greatest mis-selling of health policy ever. You dismissed all of this, Taoiseach. You rebuked all and sundry who questioned it. One of the biggest cases of political mis-selling in recent history, said the IMO. Taoiseach, the question I have to put to you is this. How did you get it so wrong and make such a mess of this? Such a mess of it. As one senior Labour Party minister said, he said, this is an astonishing mess. We are for UHI in principle, as the Labour Party is for everything in principle, but not this mess. And Taoiseach, why would anybody believe anything you ever say again in relation to health policy?
Thank you. Sorry, would you stay quiet there, Matty? Thank you.
I reject your assertions, Deputy Martin. The government remain committed to the ending of a two-tier health system which has clearly inadequacies and inefficiencies in it. The government are still committed to the implementation of universal health care funded by a universal health insurance model. The government commissioned the ESRI to carry out a report on the costings in respect of the universal health insurance model put forward by government in the programme. The government take into account the findings of the ESRI report, and the government will not implement the findings of the ESRI report in respect of this particular model, because of the costings and because of the levy that will be put upon people. So far from ignoring the truth and ignoring reality and ignoring reports, while I could quibble with elements of the ESRI report in terms of margins or transaction costs or unmet needs costs, the fact of the matter is, Deputy Martin, that the government take into account the findings of the ESRI report, and I note that the author was very clear this morning in talking about this particular model of universal health insurance. So what government and what the minister intends to do is to continue on the path of reform that has been underway now for a number of years, to commission further work as is envisaged by the ESRI in their own report. There are other models of funding that should be examined, that can be examined and that will be examined. So from government's perspective, what we want to do is to continue to hold clearly to the ending of the two-tier health system. We want to introduce universal access to health care based on medical needs, and we will continue to look at funding models different than this particular model that was examined by the ESRI, and in respect of which they have produced their findings at the request of government, which commissioned this report following the publication of the Universal Health Insurance White Paper published in 2014. That's slightly different from your own programme for health, which was rejected by your own author. But however,
Taoiseach, George Washington once said it's better to offer no excuse than a bad one. And I've respectfully put to you, Taoiseach, that what I said at the outset is reflected again in your reply. Language means absolutely nothing to you, and you will say anything. You've just now said you do not propose to implement the findings of the ESRI. The ESRI report is an evaluation of the model that your government and that you approved in the White Paper 18 months ago. Do you get that, Taoiseach? And the SRI and others and KPMG have said that the cost for a family with up to 2 children, that what you were proposing in your model, Taoiseach, which you said 18 months ago represented value for money, was about 8,000 to 9,000 potentially for a family of 2 children, and would cost the state about 6.5 billion. And now you come in and say, "Oh, we're not doing that model."
Question,
you spent 10 years telling the Irish people you were going to implement that model. But you did no research, you did no blueprint, because it didn't matter, Taoiseach. The truth did not matter to you before the last election. It didn't matter to you for the last 5 years.
Thank you.
Because you hadn't a bull's notion how you're going to get there, and still don't. And you still don't, Taoiseach. Because you just talk about models and models. And in fairness,
would you put your question?
I will indeed.
Would you put your
if I could put it to you, Taoiseach, isn't the Labour Minister correct? Isn't the Labour Minister correct who said, "This is an astonishing mess. We are for UHI in principle, but not this mess."
Sorry,
there are still large chunks missing.
Put your question.
How can we have an intelligent conversation?
Sorry, are you going to put your question or are you not? Thank you.
And that's the key point, Taoiseach. You don't believe in the Irish public having an intelligent conversation about anything to do with policy or health. You believe in delusion, and you underfunded the health service. You created the...
Deputy, you're not listening to me. You're way over time. Would you put your supplementary? Thank you.
The grand universal health insurance plan that will be grand when it ever gets delivered in another 10 years.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
Tell the truth for once on this, Taoiseach. You broke your promise and you have failed in this key area of government policy.
Settle down. There's no point in getting excited. Sorry, would you all settle down, please? No point in getting excited.
I recall,
the Taoiseach to reply.
I recall Deputy Martin's words when he occupied the Department of Health about the extent of money being put into it that was never going to be enough. I recall you saying you'd end waiting lists for once and for all. I recall you and your PPARs. I recall so many things. And at the end of the day, Deputy Martin, you are the only minister, for health that I can ever remember who denied responsibility for anything that happened in the Department of Health. And you ran a mile from it.
Now, you stay quiet. You just stay quiet.
I want to go back to your charge. Let me go back to your charge. Let me go back to your central charge. Yes, the government commissioned the ESRI to do a body of work on the implications of funding in respect of a particular model of universal health insurance. Let me repeat, yes, 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 yes. And is anybody infallible, Deputy Martin? Is anybody infallible? You denied all responsibility for reports commissioned. I accept the report of the ESRI, and the government will not continue with that particular form of UHI insurance funding model. And the author of the report pointed out today, as we know and as the Minister brought to government, there are other models of multi-payer insurance funds that can be examined and that will be examined now. In the meantime, we've got a whole challenge challenge of reform and structural changes, from hospital groups to money follows the patient, to the Department of Children, the waiting lists indeed, the question of trolleys and the fair deal and the medical cards, and all of these areas that are going to have to be done anyway, Deputy Martin, in respect of whatever alternative funding model is put in place. Your model is to increase income tax and continue with an inefficient two-tier system.
Thank you.
Ours is universal health care funded by universal health insurance, a particular form of model. So I reject your assertions.